All right. Hey, folks, we're back. Before I just get going here, please go ahead and throw in some love in the chat there for the film that I've seen it a couple of times. It gets me every time. I was like, don't cry before the talk back, especially that last film. You already know it gets me. But here's what I'm going to do while you're putting some love in the chat. I'm going to reintroduce our artists today because this panel is so sick when you saw the film. But then we're also going to get into In Our Mother's Garden. And for those who've seen both films, you can see how the similarities, the values alignment, like just the type of narrative that's there, and it's amazing. So let me reintroduce our artists in this panel. So Amber Phillips, the creator of the film that y'all just saw, is a storyteller, creative director, reproductive justice activist whose work imagines a world where Black womanhood is an abundant, overwhelming experience of safety, pleasure, and joy. Amber's work draws on her life as a Black, fat, queer femme auntie from the Midwest. Amber is devoted to using radical Black imagination to create stories, art, culture, and community. All right. And then our next panelist, our next artist, filmmaker is Shantrelle P. Lewis, a New Orleans native and Howard University alumnus, a United Nations Program for People of African Descent fellow, is a multi-hyphen creative and scholar who accesses multiple disciplines to help elucidate African diasporic history, aesthetics, culture, and spirituality. Her directorial debut film premiered at Black Star Film Festival in 2020. Amber's film is premiering there next month as well. And Shantrelle won the Shine Award for Best Film from a Philadelphia-based filmmaker. This past May, In Our Mother's Garden premiered on Netflix through Ava DuVernay's Array Productions and has received a lot of acclaim and from audiences globally. Her book Dandelion, there's just so many things here. Like Chantrelle's amazing. We've known each other for a while, but the Dandelion Project, I remember that, seeing it in MOAG here in San Francisco, became a book published by Aperture in 2017. Her work has been featured in New York Times, LA Times, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, NPR, all of this stuff. And she is also the co-founder of Shop Black, along with her husband, Tony Lawson. So these are our artists today. I myself am a writer and theater maker, and so super aligned with the introductions, super aligned with these artists. So I'm just gonna get into it and just first of all, let you give you a chance to introduce yourself and talk about what your inspirations for both films are. So I'm going to start with Amber, since we just saw your film. If you just share a little bit about your inspiration, who your intended audience is, what was the purpose of creating this film, and then I'll pass it off to Shantrelle.
Wow. Hi, everyone.
I'm sorry, I was trying to be all good. I'm like, child, flowers, applauses, ovations, all of that. Okay.
Good now. Every time I see it, I'm just like, whew, wow, we really got that done. Again, thank y'all so much for being here and spending this evening with us. I'm excited to jump in. I will just go there. Every time anybody takes 30 minutes out of their days, 30 minutes out of their time to sit with that piece, it just fills me up. A lot of the folks that I talk about in the piece are ancestors. That's why I still get emotional every single time. My personal big inspiration for this piece was sometimes we wait to tell stories of Black folks until they do something extraordinary, as if breathing here on this particular planet isn't a miracle in and of itself. So that was a big motivation for me. And then also because of the way we filmed it, because I am, for this piece and the work that I'm doing right now, I'm telling you this story, right? You have to take my word for it to really prove that a Black person like me, a Black woman like me can be the center of the universe. So I am a big muse for myself, and other Black folks who look like me are muses for myself. And that was a lot of the inspiration and audacity. I mean, nobody was like banging on my door to be like, hey, can you tell a queer, angry, fat story? Like nobody asked for that, but that's what they got. So that was really my motivation for this piece, is audacity, that just because we can recount these stories, we deserve to tell them. Not only at our kitchen tables, which I really encourage a lot of people to do, is like, tell your stories. I was that kid. I already told you I was a little badass. So I always found my way to be around the kitchen table. You know, when you're younger, you gotta, if you want to be in the room, you gotta kind of be quiet, but like be present, but not be seen too much. So that's where a lot of my storytelling abilities comes from, the other women in my family who just helped court every single dinner, no matter what it was. So yeah, I'll say that because I want us to keep going.
Right on. Thank you, Amber. And now, Shantrelle, if you could just share with folks a little bit about In Our Mother's Garden, the inspiration behind it, why this film was so important.
On Netflix!
On Netflix! Right.
Please!
Phone, Legua, Maferaphone, Obatala, Maferaphone, Shango, Kago, Kabio, Sile, Maferaphone, Yemonja, Maferaphone, Oshun. Shout out to my grandma Gladys Ibaye, my grandma Rose Ibaye, my great grandmother Verna, Mama Verna Ibaye, Mama Ada Ibaye, Grandma Hilda Ibaye, Grandpa Joe Ibaye, Grandpa Charles Ibaye, great grandpa Nathan Ibaye, and all of my Egon known and unknown until the end of beginning of time. So I would start there. Being a Black woman from the U.S. South by way of New Orleans, Louisiana, who was in a lot of ways like yourself, Amber, as a child. For me, as a survivor, and growing up in a very color-struck society. And it's funny because I have, my husband Nigerian. He'd be like, "Girl, you like?" I'm like, how do you disrespect me like that now?
My theory is you light skin until a darker person shows up. You become light skin when the darkest person in the room stands beside you.
Look, and so it was my voice that saved me. Unlike the women in your family, the women in my family were tight-lipped. So I didn't get stories from them. I was the child, the gender bending tomboy, too loud, too everything, that wanted to ask all the questions and blah blah blah. And it was the men in my family who actually took the time to answer those questions, to indulge me in that way, because of course, and, I talk about it in Our Mother's Garden. Like for the women, it's like that's back there. We ain't talking about that shit, And so for me, I would have to piece together things from what they didn't say, and then living in the storytelling of my daddy, my grandfather, my great grandfather. And so I think the inspiration is my own journey, like healing my own relationship with my mama. And I mean, it's like when I first saw your film, it was like I called Kat and I was like, it's like at different moments in history when there are inventions, discoveries that are happening at the same time, like electricity, and like there are scientists that are moving in different parts of the world, and there's this synchronicity that's happening, because there's like this awakening in this portal. I think we've been moving at such a rapid speed, and there have been so many destructive forces to take us all out, and the fact that this portal is opening up and here we are existing together, and our stories are mirroring in so many ways. I was bawling. I was laughing. I was bawling. And so for me, it was like the unpacking of the healing work with my own mama and dealing with that shit in real time, the reckoning that was happening with my family as a survivor, And then, my commitment to African spirituality. Like, I'm clearly understanding of my why in this moment is to help connect us to our traditions. And even if it's like everybody not signing up to like deal with chickens and goats and all that other stuff, at the very least, cook your people some food. Even you cooking those pancakes, girl. I talk about Gladys cakes, my grandma's pancakes from scratch.
Yes.
And I'm sitting there with the cast iron skillet. I'm like, like, are you serious? And so it was like I had to just it wasn't a story I wanted to tell, because when we start unpacking our shit, particularly a lot of unhealed, trauma-bearing Black women, that's a whole lot of shit that you're dealing with. And it's not just ours, it's our mothers, our aunties, our grandmas. So putting our business out in the street, right? And so how do you tell your story in such a raw and vulnerable and honest way? And in the telling of your story that you need for your own survival, but then you're holding space for theirs at the same time. And it's that delicate balance. But, we find a way to do it, And so I began there and then let, spirit do what it needed to do.
Yeah, I know you got questions, but I want to
go for it. Please go for it.
I want to say this too, Shantrelle, why it was so an honor for you to say yes to being in conversation with me today is, one, the week that we were premiering Abundance, I want to go offline to talk about what comes of how do you actually get a story out into the world in this way. But when I was kind of trying to relax and really center myself and be present, I literally stayed in our mother's garden for that week. And it was, again, the word audacity comes up a lot for me in this stuff, because just the nerve to tell these stories, whether our mothers are here or not here, and no matter how you tell it, no matter how beautiful or how much grace you give it, it's still new for us to put some of these things out into the world for them, because they my mom didn't plan on me being this kind of storyteller or this type of activist. And I love what your devotion to, even if you're not willing to do the goats and the chickens, one of the things that was always big in my family was being able to name who's in the room, being able to name the older elders, being able to name the ones who are gone or who recently left. So even with Christians and people who are still deeply in that, we still have a lot of those practices in us. To be able to name your grandma, your great-grandma, and your great-greats, right? The folks who are not here are the folks that the kids never met, right? Or I see these memes all the time, like your parents interview this Aunt May's daughter. Like, that's what happens when I go home to Columbus. So this idea of naming is really critical to Black spirituality in general, the presence of Black people, to be able to name our own. And even you holding space in the beginning of this and introducing yourself, I remember when people used to speak the names of like Dorisha. And for a long time, it happens in Love Jones, right, where he names a couple folks. For a long time, I was like, oh, he's just making up sounds. Like, that's how Christian I was. I'm like, what's up? Oh, shoot. Like, I never knew those things. And a lot of my entry point into spirituality beyond the God of Abraham, right, is through just being in space with other Black people and knowing that this isn't where our stories stop and start. Our story didn't stop and start with Christianity. I think Black folks we keep adding to this tradition, whether you're there or not, because I think we're smarter than it. We have better practices than a lot of the stuff that was given to us by white folks. So to see that continue to be a theme that is raised for us in these works, especially right now and in this moment that like you're talking about, it is a roaring 20s in a lot of ways. And I'm hoping that films like yours, films like this will just encourage people to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth and envision new worlds that are possible? What do we want to leave behind for these babies and these kids? That's what was really important to me too. I want them to know the history of our family at our church, but I want them to know that their auntie was queer as well. I don't want them to have to go digging for that information the way I had to go digging for it. And you use archival footage too, of just like looking for yourself in your lineage, like for real, like who else was like this in my bloodline, because I know they were there.
Yes. Oh, I got chills. I'm like, I say, oh, like, I got chills. You know, it's interesting that you say that because watching Abundance, you know, the chapter, which even like how there were these chapters, right? And the queer chapter is where you talk about spirituality. Yes. And then there's a queering of Christianity, right? That I thought was so powerful and so amazing, because that's essentially what our ancestors did in order to be able to keep their lives alive. Yeah. They had to queer, and I don't know if say this even articulated in this way, but they queered, you know, Christianity, they queered Catholicism, you know, which was why it was so easy for me to fall in line, because, you know, I'm Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, blessed are thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death, amen. So growing up Black Catholic, which is different from, you know, the Ave Maria Catholic, because in New Orleans, you know, we have the largest population of Black Catholics in the U.S. And so, like the iconography, the rituals of Catholicism made it very easy to morph into Yoruba and Lukumi. But, you know, I tell folks, I was even telling my therapist today, because I was catching him up over the past 2 weeks because his ass had the nerve to go on vacation. And so, like the audacity of you to go on vacation. And a lot has happened in 2 weeks, but I was catching him up. I was like, you know, the day before my birthday, I was sobbing. I was like pulling up at the airport. My husband and my 2 bonus kids got out of the car to go check in, and I just started sobbing because I was dealing with all of this heaviness that I've been carrying since the film's release. And it was the day before my birthday, and I'm sobbing, and I was just feeling sad. It was a Saturday, and I'm like, I'm on my way to New Orleans, and you know, like once I get down there and get into my hotel room, that shit was fucking lit. So I was like, my mood changed. But the next morning, I went to church to mass for the first time in years. And he was like, wait, what? You went to who, how, where? And so it's that notion while like in that chapter, you're talking about Christian. When you started singing, that's when I really started bawling, you know? Even in talking about like it was just, my mother has her program already done for whenever she passes. Not just the outfit, the program. Girlfriend has the program, okay? And so it's like that, the burial, the funerary rites, the burial practices, you know, just all of the ways that we connect and then keep them alive. You know what I mean? It just like touched me to my core. And so I'm just like, I hope that one of the things that people take from both of us in our work, in the way that we both show up very unapologetically ourselves, in the way that we speak, in the way that we act, the way we carry ourselves, how we are committed to our story. I can't be
how we talk, like that's still being worthy of elevation or to be heard. Like that was a big thing for me in your film. Like the way you talk, like that's what I want to hear. I want to hear all this and that. I want to hear the dropping of, you know, I have a heavy tongue being from Ohio, and that I was self-conscious in a lot of the performance because I'm like, am I really going to just do it like this? I'm like, yeah, that's how I talk. Like, anyway, sorry.
No, don't apologize. But that's the thing. We're taught, even my accent. That's how I watch it. So, you know, I've always had a smaller frame my whole life. That's my dad's side of the family. And so, but my loudness, it was always, I was too loud. So then you come to the East Coast where you're loud. Like my voice is always naturally loud. And then I had this strong ass accent. And it wasn't even an option for me to, because when I would go back home, it's like, how am I going to talk in a way in which my grandmother doesn't understand me? So even if I'm in these like black, quote unquote black spaces, because there's so many black academics and artists and scholars who talk blackness and they study blackness and they teach blackness. But baby, when's the last time they've been around black people? What neighborhoods they living in? Where they going to make their groceries, right? And who are their audiences? Even for black artists, like who are your audiences? And so I think, all the ways that we can take up space, however that is, through our bodies, through our voices, through our stories. And like, I remember this white Dutch man, because I've been going back and forth to the Netherlands for like the past decade. He told me I needed to take the margins and bring it to the center, right? He was like, you doing all this stuff on the margins. I've always worked for black institutions my whole life. I went to black schools. Like, this is who I am. This is not a performance. And I was like, nah, we need to take the center and bring it to us.
Right.
I don't need to conform or assimilate to fit inside to make somebody else feel comfortable. And, I think that's what, like, I just appreciated so much about, like, everything, like, just, even, like, being in lingerie, you're a Sag, so you're a Sag. So,
it was fun.
Too hot to too cold to hold, all right? But it's like I remember this one time, I don't know, I was wearing something, because I've been self-conscious about one thing or another all my life, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And my husband, he can't say I'm bringing him up, but it was like the girls were out, and I was flash testing my whole life. So the girls just came out of nowhere, like in my adulthood. So I'm like, got on the sexy baby, and he's like, I'm like, what you won't be doing today, sir, is policing my body. No.
Not policing my body.
We're not gonna do that. It was just, it's always important to me, like, however, whatever I need to course correct a lot of the trauma that happened to me, so that I can always feel agency, I can always feel control, and a lot of times that has been through my literal voice. I'm going to try to exercise that right and that agency any chance that I get, because when we do stuff like that, then we give somebody else permission to show up in their most authentic, honest, rawest, truest space as well.
Yeah, I think there was something you said. I now want to address the lingerie for that. One of the things that was important to me was when I was putting together that scene, I knew I wanted it to be like sensual and sexy. But we all still have our shit. Like it's not always us. It's more so what people put on to our bodies, right? We're having this big conversation about bonnets and Monique and all these other things. But one of the things that I really want people to acknowledge is the ways in which they shame fat black bodies existing in their fullness and their sexiness on a regular basis. Airport or not, bonnet or not, dressed up or not. Right. We are telling fat people we can't be sexy, we can't be this. So I know that about myself. Like, I believe I'm a bad motherfucker. Like, I believe I'm fine. I am very fine. I'm aware. Yeah. People think I don't know what it's giving. I know what it's giving.
All of it.
But the being able to stamp that on film was hard. It's something it's hard for me to do even in pictures, even though I don't mind walking in my fullness, right? Like I'm the swimsuit queen. So when I was doing that scene the night before, I was going to wear something completely different, even though I knew I had that outfit for it. And I was watching TV, and this beautiful French black singer, and she was just naked doing opera, and dark and lush. And I was like, I owe it to myself to do this. I owe it to myself to see myself like this. And when we got finished shooting, when we were editing it, I had like a whole emotional breakdown because I'm like, am I sure I'm going to put this out? And the answer was, of course. The only reason why I feel any kind of way is because no one has had the nerve to do it for me, to give me that image. And now I'm going to give myself that image and give the folks who move forward in creating stories to have the nerve to show themselves outside of a waist trainer, you know, to see their thighs, to see their arms, to see the bellies, because that's what I see. That's what my lovers see. That's what my family sees. That's what my niece grabs onto. Because, you know, my niece is, she's turning 8. She's a cancer baby. And when I was home, she always is grabbing on my body. And she was like, I was like, Hannah, why are you grabbing on me like that? And she's like, because you thick. And like for her, and she's a little chubby child too. And I'm like, yeah, we are. And it's not on some representation shit. It's on the reality that, you know, this is our body and we deserve to exist in those bodies in all the ways that they will show up in our lives, you know? Especially the body that I put on film was my pandemic body. It was, I'm keeping safe in the house and cooking in the cast iron body, goddamn. So we gotta honor that. That's the body that got me through 10 months of bullshit. So it was an honor to document that.
Thank you for that. Thank you. May we all be that brave.
Exactly.
Okay, you gonna keep letting us going?
Yeah. You know what? Here's the thing. When I knew you two would come into space together, I know I could just disappear in the background like that Homer emoji that disappears in the grass. But I do have questions to keep things moving. Y'all have mentioned a lot of amazing things. And I just want to recognize how much y'all are loving on each other, like how beautiful it is for women to support women and big up women, because, you know, it's not always the case, but I love seeing that thriving here between y'all and us, because I love y'all. Okay, so the other thing that y'all were talking about is religion, and like one of the questions I had is, what are the cultural norms that you feel like this narrative that you put out there is disrupting? I know spirituality is a hot topic. We spent a lot of time on that too. But another thing that both of y'all kind of talk about too, and what resonates with me is generational trauma, ancestral healing, ancestral curses. And I honestly feel like the work we do, because I my first solo show was called Mommy Queer. It's about me and my mom both being queer. I'm working on a play about my mom and my grandma right now. So I relate so much. But yeah, like, you know, it is, to me, that work is breaking ancestral curses, because 3 generations ago, my grandmothers, great grandmothers couldn't speak during colonization, right? It was a matter of safety, and now we do. I feel like we're in a time or paradigm where to survive, we actually have to be loud and not silent anymore, right? So, but yeah, what do you feel like you consciously or intentionally want to disrupt through your film? And if it helps, like, you know, centering who your audience is for the film too, please feel free to share about that.
Amber, you want to go first?
Sure. I feel like the things that I'm trying to disrupt right now is my big worry with I was seeing, I made this in 2020, and it was an idea that I had since like maybe 2019, 2018. And 2019 is the year that I told my mom I was queer. And then I was the same time, and I was calling it like, I'm a Queen Latifah queer. Like, you know, I'm queer, but I ain't gotta really say nothing on it, right? Like, cause what's understood don't need to be said. But again, I love Lorraine Hansberry. She's one of the people that I reach for a lot when I had to sit down and have the nerve to write. And the thing that is beautiful and also very difficult about her story is kind of like this deep digging that has to happen to find traces of her queerness. And though that is our choices to make, that is something that I really didn't want, because literally my queerness was informing everything about me. It was informing my politics. It informs the way I dress. It informs my hair, my skin routine. Like, it's all of that. I always say it's like my queerness is the place where I move my politics and my pleasure, right? And to not name that, for me, is not what I thought that I was gathering from these stories of, like political icons like Barbara Jordan and all these folks who is like, it's heard of that they're queer, but you really you have no confirmation, right? Because we are, I love one of my dearest friends, Jasmine Burnett. She really tells the story of her aunt who was queer and like did these basement parties, Aunt Betty's basement. And of course, there's this whole legacy of how Black lesbians were supporting each other. And then, of course, with shows like Pose and Paris is Burning, we're also seeing this for Black trans folks, that this idea that these people just didn't exist is literally absurd. And not only did they exist, but they are Black people. Do y'all hear me? This is a legacy of Blackness. Queerness is a legacy of Blackness. Blackness is a legacy of queerness. So those are kind of the things. It's not really disrupting the narrative, but honoring what the narrative actually is. The actual narrative is that Black queer people have always been here. The real narrative is that Black people have always been trans and gender abundant. And like, that has always been true. But the thing about heteronormativity and white supremacy and capitalism is, even when we see it, we try to straighten it out. There's all these memes about like your auntie and her friend. Y'all see us, but then you try to straighten us out. When, how dare you? How dare you ignore that the choir director is in a custom checkered suit leading the choir? That is a gay man. Right? Honor that the music of a lot of our churches, the literal people who are bringing these spaces together, are queer.
Yes.
So to me, it's about writing the narrative. It's about bringing that into the light and making it have its place. Because without us, there is no Black liberation. There is no March on Washington. There is no jazz. There is no, there are no gathering spaces without Black, queer, and trans people. So to erase us is to do a disservice to Blackness. And one of the things I didn't want to happen when what makes me Black is literally my family. My parents are Black, my grandparents are Black, their parents are Black. And I didn't want this thing of the reality of the fullness of who I was to separate me from my Blackness, from my queerness. So I'm going to put all that shit back together exactly where it belongs. And that's the narrative that I'm putting forward for folks, that you can no longer erase that. And we can't do that. And for what? For who? For white people? Because that's what it is. Like, it's whiteness that's telling you to do that shit. That shit is not of us. And that's one of the biggest things. Like, I want people to know that homophobia, transphobia is not of Black people. That is something that was given to us, and we need to put that shit down where we found it.
I say. Period. I mean, I don't have anything else to say. I mean, like, I came here for Amber. I don't know about the rest of y'all. Amber. I came here for abundance. All right. This Gemini came for abundance.
I love y'all so much. I love y'all so much.
I don't even need to answer the question. I mean, I don't need to. I mean, like, that encompasses all of it. I mean, encompasses. Did I make that up? Encompasses.
The word encompasses. New word alert.
All of the thing about it is, a lot of my work is, and even as a curator, I'm retired now, but I've always asserted that I am an African-centered curator, which is different from Afrocentric, which tends to be Hotepish a lot of times. So it is not that, right? people talk about Africa in this very ahistorical way about this is
Come on.
we're like, this is what women were like, this is what we were doing, when all of that is incorrect, because all of that is rooted in white supremacist ideology and theories. So like even today, I posted on my page this piece from this Black person in on the continent talking about all of the ways that queerness has existed, in so many different African societies. I can't speak in all in that language, but in enough to say that it was throughout the country, from the east to the north to the south to the center to the west, and so even when folks are talking about ways that men and women relate to each other, or even what folks were like, and it's like there were always what some may call gatekeepers in our community. There were always gender queer spirit. Sometimes these were like the literal, like the intersection between humans and God, deities, right? And so I think it's just a lot of unpacking and learning that we need to do. And I think that's what I'm attempting to do in my work, is like really get us back to our center of who we are, because we perform so many things like this is what it means to be Black, but because so much of it has been constructed, like has been like, of course we can. There's like our culture, there's our sensibilities, there's our aesthetic, that's true, but just like Blackness has also been such a caricature in the imagination of white people in a lot of ways.
The limited imagination of white people, very limited.
That's who we are. That's what we're responding to. That's what we're living up to. So, again, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
With your fineness, with your brilliance, with your honesty. Period.
I love all of that. I mean, just to like crystallize that agenda, you ain't just dropped in no narratives. You are putting forth narratives that exist already, like that are like ancestral narratives to us, and same for Filipinos. Two-spirited people, queer people were priestesses and priests in our culture, right? And it's colonization, white supremacy that takes that away from us and makes us question our true selves, our true histories and stuff like that. So thank you so much for breaking that down. The other thing too, we probably have like another 10, 15 minutes in this conversation. So just another question that I have for both of y'all, because again, I know y'all as individuals. I've talked to you through the process of your filmmaking and putting out these films. And one question I had is, what does it take for us to put for us, or for you, what did it take for you to put this film out there? Because this makes people uncomfortable, like, just that, right? Like putting these type of narratives make people uncomfortable, and sometimes even folks that we expect to be cheering for us. And so we're fighting, like as artists, we fight to put our narratives out. We fight to tell the truth, right? Like it's always, I wish it was just easy, but I know each of you felt experience your own challenges putting the film out there. But can you share a little bit about what it took for you, and also was it worth it?
You want to go first, because your film is far in it.
All my life I had to fight. I had to fight my own life. I had to fight that. If my film had another name, if the process of making my film had another name, it was all my life I had to fight.
Wow. Yeah.
Know that. And because we want to do things after this thing that we do, we have to we can't always speak about our pain, publicly. So you're gonna get the
Yeah.
But I will say this though, and I know I have a village of folks. Right. I could not have done this without village. I could not have done this first with my grandmother like co-directing, from Beyond the Grave. I say Gladys was
Right.
the co-director. She co-directed this piece from Beyond the Grave. My editor, Shaniqua Neek Lewis, who is a black queer Harlem chick, who's now in the Philadelphia region. We were like, this is Neek and I making that film together.
Yes.
It was Neek and I making that film together. My one of my DPs, Sakia Dorset, who is also another black queer woman. My friends my producers, of course, Jason and Josh, who both went to Howard. There was so many creatives from Kenya, Safari, who did the collages. So that's the thing that when I saw the collages and the flowers, child,
yeah,
like, oh my God.
Yeah. When I saw that in your film, I was like, we're doing something right. Like
clearly. And so it was a lot of trust that happened, and just like leaning on, I leaned on my godparents. I leaned on, folks like Cleaver, Cruz. I friend my little sibling, my younger sibling. Even though sometimes Cleaver can seem a little older than me, but I'm always like, you're really 12. But Cleaver started the Black Joy Project, but that was just like my archivist Wakia, who's also this like one of the most brilliant people. I mean, there's just so many people. Like I could not have done this without every step of the way. Just cheering me on, giving me the support that I needed. Like when I wanted to quit and be like, fuck this, fuck everybody, fuck this, fuck you, and you. Just giving me the telling me that that there's like a higher purpose for all of this, and so being able to sacrifice some moments of sanity and sleep and comfort, because I knew that again, like portals will be opened up. Like there's Black Christians talking about they building ancestor altars because Mama Coco came and gave all of us everything we didn't even know that we needed, So shout out to everybody. It was a group project. I will say that.
Yeah, I will say one of the great things about this project is I feel like a lot of folks didn't see it coming. The people who were funding me, like I am very grateful for the funds. And this is the thing that I would be I need to say is like I really want people to fund more Black artists.
Yeah.
Black people fund Black artists, unruly Black art, like the Black art that makes you a little nervous. Fund that person, because I feel like especially my generation right now, we can do the investments in the houses, we can buy all these things, but what does it mean to also invest in our stories? To not just gather the land, but who's going to tell the story that we were actually here, right? Like we're watching things like High on the Hog and seeing that a lot of that generational wealth is being snatched overnight. It's not real. But our stories can exist throughout time. And I will say, regardless of all that stuff, like I do, like if you got a little bit of money, a little bit of coin, find you a Black artist to invest in. Like that ass, like that is what makes the difference, is for you to throw them coin and be a patron of the arts. And that's what I loved about Abundance so much. It allowed me to be a patron of artists that I love, like from working with Kim Allen, who directed it, and Sade, who is DPing the hell out of Black stories. And a lot of these people came together on this project just off of the weight of the stories. Like people were taking time away from bigger projects and bigger budgets to help me tell this particular story. And I'm so grateful for that. And even all the music that you hear is from Boomscat, who is based in DC, Patience and Asha. I went from like thinking I wouldn't have enough funds to pay them to do the music to really just taking a risk, a leap, and being like, hey, would y'all do my music? Like, instead of me just asking for songs every now and then. And they did it too because they saw themselves in this work. And that's the beauty of also being a Black artist who works with other Black creators, is that when we see our people will move things for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And a lot of this isn't just about money, it's about the talent. It is about the eyes, it's about the vision. And I'm so grateful that I really got Ariana the editing process, like really sitting in and like going above and beyond, because she did the collages, like, so that kind of stuff. And the fact that I will say this too, for people who are known on social media, which where a lot of my work lives, because that's where my audience is. My audience is Black people. And I kept saying that, people like, you don't think you want to expand it? I was like, no, y'all can, because guess what? Whenever I said this is a Black thing, other people have always found their way here. So I need to be clear on who I'm talking to so I can get my story right.
Yes.
Because y'all be having me talking to an imaginary white person in the room whom I don't know, and don't know why I'm writing towards their viewpoints. So I will say, like, that has been a joy in all this. And also being a creator online, people want you to stick to 15 seconds or a minute or 5 minutes, and we talk about attention spans and all this other shit. And it's like, we have spent hours in Marvel Universe. Hours in universes. People got time for us. You have to trust and believe that the folks who this is for will find their way to it. And every time I've done this screen, I'm like, well, if I could get 100 people to watch it, it'd be amazing. And it's always more. It's always people putting this in other folks' hands. So I'm excited for that part of it and really leaning into that joy of it and really existing in the people who want to be here now before somebody else tells them it's hot, you know? So I feel like this is the fun part after I got through, a couple of fuck you, fuck this, like, moments over 30 minutes worth of content. It's not even long, like, come on. But I'm so glad I did it, because now it is a calling card. It's a testament to what I know I can do and what I will continue to do, because like you say, your grandma helped co-direct. Mary Alice was all up in this, and it made sense. To end the film with an offering to her was important to me, because that has been my whole life, especially when she passed. My whole life is an offering to the prayers of this woman and her love, her deep love for all of us, regardless of what we were going through, regardless of what we were doing, which is why I felt so comfortable combining spirituality, her story, and my queerness, because I believe that what I believe happened is, like, when my grandmother passed, was I dyking back then? I was dyking a little bit when my grandmother was here. But I know that she got a hold of the fullness of who I am from her positioning in this world. And I think she's clear. I know she's clear. And as long as she loves me, as long as my mother loves me, as long as my sisters and Hannah love me, I really don't care what anybody else has to say about it.
Child, I'm over here sweating. You got me like worked up and shit. I had to turn the fan off so it won't be all loud. I'm like,
I'm glad too, because I was like, when I heard your voice, I was like, oh, we get to be ourselves. Yes, like, yes. I'm grateful for that. I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, we gotta get you a church fan. We definitely gotta get you a budget church fan.
Talking to me?
Yes.
Boo, I got church fans, girl. Don't see, that's what y'all non-black Catholic, y'all Negroes that be going.
No, we got a special abundance church fan. I got a special abundance church fan for you.
Oh, that's how. Yes. I ain't got no church fan and tambourine up over yonder somewhere. Like, we ain't have no church fans up in Catholic church.
It's hot in New Orleans. Y'all got church fans.
Hot as hell in New Orleans. Okay.
All right.
Amen.
Okay, folks. Let me. We're coming to the close of our little talk back here. But I know at some point Chantrelle's gonna come to LA. We're all gonna hang out together, have dinner. It's gonna be amazing. we're gonna be in person in real life at some point. But last question for folks. What's next for y'all? What's the next project you're working on? Where can we see what's next? Where can folks see your work? What do we, or rest is good too, but what's next for you? What's that? Yeah.
That's so funny because like as soon as it was done, people were like, "What's next?" I'm like, "Can I motherfuckers? Like, can I take a nap? Like, you know what I'm saying? Shit.
Yo.
Can I go be laid up? Like, that's what's next. Being laid up. That's literally. Nah. Yeah. No. I think I'm. You know, it's funny, Amber, that you were talking about like the tension of telling stories in such a way that's having people like sit with it. And that's, for me, that was Mama Coco's part, who is my elder god sister. She's an Obatala priest. She's my former professor in grad school and one of my one of my mentors, of course. But I was like, this shit, people gonna be like, what the hell? Like, because it's just her. It's her bracelets, the accoutrements, the house. And you know, if y'all paid attention, there was really only one question asked to Mama Coco. And she was like, you wanna know how long I could be in a cipher? I was like, what, a day? She was like 36 hours, 72 hours. Oh, okay. And she can. And so that was like just trusting. I mean, for anybody that's interested in filmmaking, I want to say also like just trusting, because there's a lot of fear, that happens, and everyone's be afraid and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be speaking out. Like, the shout out to Array also for betting on Black people and other other communities that are underrepresented in storytelling. One of the stories that premiered before mine, or the film that they released before mine, was called Alaska is a Drag. And it was this amazing story about this Black queer boy growing up in Alaska, of all places. And why did I bring that up? I don't even know, but that was the reason why I brought that up. But
what you doing next?
What am I doing next? Yeah, but it was another reason why I brought it up. I mean, watch the movie. It's a beautiful film. But all that to say, be afraid and do it anyway. Because it was like the filmmaker was telling me about how so many people reached out to her and also to the star of the film, because it was like, there's some Black queer person, child that is growing up in Ohio right now that's going to see your film, or that's dark skinned and that's going to see your film, that's big bone and that's going to see your film. And that's going to be able to like, oh, I can, like the same for me. It's like, oh, this woman that is not talking white, you know what I mean? And practices African spirituality, has natural hair, and all of these different things, that how I show up in the world, and they can see themselves in me. And it's like, I can do this too. I don't have to code switch, to make people feel comfortable. So the next project, I want to spend time working on Shop Black. Kat, you've been supportive of Shop Black, which is the company I founded with my husband to, amplify Black-owned businesses around the diaspora. But Mama Coco, yes, I am doing a film about Mama Coco. That is going to happen. So that's what I'm working on. And whatever else. And also, just building this platform. I identify as a hoodooist. I am a initiated Luku Mishango priest, but I am also a hoodooist, and so I'm clear that a part of my work is bringing us closer to our traditions, like ATRs, African traditional religion and spirituality.
Whew, I love that. And the thing I love the most I loved all of Mama Coco's part, especially when I realized you were just letting her story letting her talk, because that is where the meat is, like, to just let people go. Like, and even when we were filming Abundance, we knew that I had the stories, but they're like, we want you to be so comfortable that you do your Amber thing where you just go off. Like, me going in on white women, I can do that with my eyes closed. Like, me going in on that kind of stuff is very easy for me, because it existed. I love roasting white people. If anybody wants to sit up and host a day-long roast of whiteness, I'm there for it. I can take some time when I'm not doing my Black shit to do that, just to keep balance, you know? But so for me, we're really early in this whole process. Cat let some tea spill, but if y'all want to follow me on Instagram, Amber Abundance, where on the 6th we have some really dope announcements coming up of other places where you can see abundance. Because that's, of course, the question that I'm getting a lot is like, where can I watch it? How can I watch it? Of course, if you're listening to this, like, just reach out to me. Hey, Auntie, with an IE at Amber Abundance at Gmail. And I'm really flexible, especially right now because it's abundance is, we own it, you know, so I can do whatever the fuck I want with it. So I really encourage folks to want to reach out to me about screenings and talks and all these different things. The thing that I love about abundance, as people sit with it, more art gets created. When we released it, we had a whole abundance fest, choosing the Blackest option, which was musically directed by Sweet, also Suge's Line on Instagram, Sweet Boy Speaks, and that was like really dope because we were able to bring together the sound of abundance is very DC and it's very queer. And I want people to know that when I think of DC, that's what I hear. I hear Black folks don't swim. I hear Sweet. I hear Boom Stat. I hear Asha. I hear Patience. And I want people to really know about that part. Typically, when we think about DC, we think about politics, and there's whole communities there. That's where I was able to come into my queerness that was very Black and something that I miss being out here on the West Coast. I ain't gonna lie. But I want people to know that part of the DMV of PG County. I have to always say PG County specifically with dealing with Sweet, because Sweet is like, listen, it's PG, it's Maryland, you know.
Maryland. That's why I thought you were from DC. It's Maryland, the area.
It's Maryland, okay? Alabama. It's like, I'm getting in trouble for appropriating all this, but I love DC. That's where we were talking about Wicked Bloom. That's where I saw myself. And that's being able to, I really want people to know, like, being able to see yourself is critical. Like, you have to, when we see other people who, just being able to hear other people like me who have this churchy background. My friend Judd, who is Fat Black Clit on Instagram, like, even at the party, just the ad libs that were happening over the music, niggas was singing. Look, I'm in my bag, but we were just singing and like doing very churchy things because this is our tradition as well. Even though, and I refuse to let it be caught up only in that house. You know, like it is ours, and we can take that different places. So I will say, just continue to follow. Click on the names of these different creators. They're doing amazing stuff. Ariana is doing amazing stuff. And I just want, right now, I'm living in a world of abundance. I want to live in the overflow of what a project like this creates around me personally. I created what I needed. I felt very misunderstood. I think how we treat Black people, especially fat Black people in politics, is heinous. The spokespeople only looking one way is awful. And the fact that we're not telling the fullness of what actually led us to advocate for the things that we advocate for is a disservice. I'm not here working on behalf of this raggedy ass administration. I'm here working on behalf of the communities that I came from. I want a better life for me right now. And what this project has taught me is I get to build my own political home. I get to be a political home. We all do. You don't have to wait till you join a 501c3. You don't have to only donate money to a 501c3 to be radical and political in your politic and your thought. We have to really look to the people next to us who can't enter into some of these spaces because they don't have the right language. So that's a big part for me, is like really digging into some of the individuals of these works and what their stories are, who they come from, who they're here to represent. So right now I'm just living in abundance and writing and allowing everything that is meant to come for me to come. I have open heart, open hands, open palm to receive the overflow of what I was able to create. So that's really where I'm at right now.
I said. And I hope you know, and I'm sure you do know this, Amber, not just because you earned it, but you deserve it. You know what I mean? Just by your very being, you know.
Yeah. And I'm grateful to be in community with you because this was it could feel lonely. It's also coupled with the fact that we were in the pandemic, but abundance is freeing me up in a way because this is the kind of my stake in my career shift, as people call it. Like, I'm telling people I am a storyteller, I am a filmmaker. And how am I a filmmaker? Because I made a film.
Bitch.
What makes you a filmmaker? Well, I have a film. And I say that to anybody who's watching. The thing that makes you the thing is you doing the thing.
Say that again.
Make you a film. You want to write? I believe you wrote a sentence today. You a writer, baby. What's up?
The bar is not that high. I love that.
No,
just do it. Do the thing. Tell the story.
Especially if you're a millennial, like, cause you know Gen Xers, you know, it'd be like, oh, we gotta toil, work hard, and stuff. Millennials are like, it's in my bio, so therefore I am.
Link in bio.
Link in bio. Like, bio is the bio, and therefore I am. So I love that. I love that though. I'm learning.
Hilarious. Well, I love you both. Thank you so much for spending time with us on behalf of the Center for Cultural Power. Thank you for letting us be in this film. Thank you for letting us create this space. I'm so happy y'all connected. Folks, please follow both Shantrelle and Amber. You know them now. Like, they have so many gems, and this is like, you know, you got one hour of this, but like, they're on Instagram a lot. They're dropping gems all the time. You need horoscopes. You need a tarot card reading. Shantrelle, there's so many things. They offer so much. Like, there's so many gifts they have to offer to the world, and they want to. So, and we want to give them gifts too. So thank you so much. Yeah, continue to support these folks, Black artists. You know, at the Center for Cultural Power, we center BIPOC artists. So this is part of the work. So thank you for letting us be a part of it. And
so glad you are too. Thank y'all for this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Kat. Thank you, Culture Strike. Y'all doing it.
Everybody behind the camera, Freddie, everybody that.
Yes, Freddie.
Hello, Marie, all of y'all. Thank you so much.
Amber, MBFF, I'll see you offline. We still on because we could keep